Well, Canada's Justin Trudeau seems to be trying to do everything possible to stay in power and hang on to power. Now, the Liberal government in Canada is rolling out a plan for universal basic income. This is, of course, the World Economic Forum's dream, which is pay you a universal basic income, keep you at home so you don't have to work. You don't have to be on the roads with your carbon emissions. You can stay in your 15-minute cities and we'll pay you a universal basic income to work remotely or just stay home and live off the land. This is the dream, and Canada seems to be embracing this, and Justin Trudeau embracing UBI. David Krayden writes at Human Events. He's also on YouTube at Krayden's Right, and he joins us, first of all, with a very handsome sweatshirt for the new year, 2024. David, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Clayton, and nice to be back. And yes, I'm wearing my Redacted hoodie because it's the first episode for me of the year, and it's UBI, Universal Basic Income. It's also now being called unconditional basic income. Where is this coming from? It's quite complex because there's two private members' bills going through the Senate of Canada and the House of Commons at the same time. There's also a lobby group called UBI Works that is extremely well funded. They claim it's all from grassroots support, but I think they're getting some support here from the Government of Canada or the Liberal Party, both or either. And they're working hard behind the scenes. And by the way, I was blocked from their X site as soon as I did a broadcast a couple of weeks ago about universal basic income because they don't want any criticism, any questioning about this. The funny thing about this, Clayton, is that these bills were first introduced in October. There was a news conference which virtually nobody attended. The national media wasn't there, and you can find it on YouTube. But it's interesting. 2 months later, suddenly there's all of these stories appearing about universal basic income and how it might be the answer to poverty. Now, what is this? Obviously, this is Justin Trudeau's trial balloon to see how this is going to work. And what it really amounts to is that you get $2,000 a month for doing nothing. And apparently, if you do any other work on the side, they'll subtract 50 cents on the dollar. So what it really comes down to is that I think it was Karl Marx actually who said, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. This is rank Marxism, is what this is. Paying people to sit on their behinds and do absolutely nothing. And as people have pointed out to me since I've written this article, and I've done a couple of broadcasts already on this, how are we going to get people to work at all if they're guaranteed $2,000 a month? And will this not create an underground economy as well, as people say, hey, I'm just not going to report the income. I want my 2,000
Right.
plus. But really, the worst part of this is I say this is a tragic leap off the fiscal cliff for Canada, because what it amounts to is that $2,000 is not going to be worth $2,000 anymore as soon as you start giving everybody $2,000. I mean, that's fingers and thumbs arithmetic. It's pretty basic stuff. If everybody has $2,000, then nobody has $2,000 anymore. And it's going to devalue the Canadian currency. There's no question about that. It's not just inflationary spending, but it is insanity spending, because it's going to mean, yeah, I've got $2,000, but suddenly the rent went up to $5,000 a month. So because $2,000 isn't worth anything anymore, and this is chaos, absolute chaos.
Well, that's exactly what happens when they do that with car subsidies, right? The auto manufacturers, they're going to give you a $7,000 subsidy so you can do this, and then the car manufacturers raise the price $7,000 to compensate and to match it. I've looked at a lot of these pilot programs over the years for universal basic income with with great interest, and to see how, in fact, it could maybe elevate and bring people out of poverty. But if there's a disincentive to work, you are asking for chaos. You are asking for a collapse of democracy. If you're incentivizing people to not work, to not be productive, to not provide to society, to not create, to not build, to go into construction, to innovate, you're encouraging them to stay home, and if they do work, they're penalized. This is the opposite of sort of a welfare to work program. And people falling on hard times. I'm not without empathy for people going through hard times and needing this transitional period, maybe a helping hand for a short amount of time, with the encouragement and the idea that they will find employment, that they will find work, and they will get back as a member of society that's contributing to society. But Trudeau's government seems to be wanting to keep people from contributing and instead just wants to buy votes. That's the way it appears to me.
This is a colossal bribery scheme. That's all this is. The only other period in Prime Minister Trudeau's reign of terror I can think of that reminds me of this is when he offered legalize marijuana for everybody to placate the masses. And I think this is another example of bribing people to say, hey, you can stay home and do nothing. You got used to doing that during the pandemic when he offered what was called the CERB, which was a conditional stipend that was given to everybody who stayed home and couldn't work anymore or didn't want to work anymore. This is a continuation of that. And there is no incentive to find a job. And it really is bribery. But it's interesting because I think Trudeau wanted this trial balloon to sort of continue to be there over the 6 weeks that the House of Commons isn't sitting, and it's not right now. But the funny thing is, as God would have it, I really believe he's been caught up not only in his vacation, which was another disaster, staying while everybody is starving in Canada because of his impoverishing carbon tax. He goes to Jamaica and stays at a $10,000 a night resort for 2 weeks. And what else happens? His deputy prime minister has a journalist arrested. So what are people talking about now? They're not talking about universal basic income this week. They're talking about how Trudeau has no empathy for people in need at all because he can spend $10,000 a night because it's free because he's staying at a friend's resort in Jamaica. And his deputy prime minister can have journalists arrested for asking the wrong questions. So that now is what people are talking about in Canada. That seems to have taken precedence over this stupid plan to have people stay at home for $2,000 a month.
Can you follow? We talked at the beginning about following the money here. Where do you think this funding? Who's pushing this? Who's pushing this program in Canada? Have you been able to follow it? To some shady characters. I'm just curious who's really trying to push this universal basic income plan in Canada.
Yes, if you go to UBI Works, it is UBI Works as it's usually spelled. You can see the people behind these. These are woke academics who are behind this, and these are economists who have expertise in fields you wouldn't imagine, such as feminism and other elements of woke politics, transgender economics. I've never heard of that before. I mean, is there a special economics for transgender people? But these aren't serious economists who are backing this plan. And if you look at the credentials of these people, you say, oh my God, this is coming from academia and the far left of the political spectrum in Canada. And this is being pushed on us as a solution to a problem when all it's going to do is create incredible ramifications and consequences for the economy. And as I say, it's going to push Canada off the fiscal cliff. In terms of what it's going to cost, I think, I better mention that. It's probably going to double the national debt in 3 to 4 years. Now, our national debt, you've got your national debt up there every day. I see that as a $34 trillion. Canada's has
Right.
always been about 10% because we have 10% of the population. Ours is approaching $4 trillion. So it's now higher than the 10% it always used to be. This could conceivably double the national debt in 4 to 5 years if this goes through. Now, can Canada afford this? Well, of course not. But it never seems to stop Trudeau, and it doesn't stop Joe Biden from getting involved in foreign wars and paying for infrastructure that's not really infrastructure. It's printing, printing, printing more money until the whole thing falls through. The floor is going to come through here. We cannot afford to keep sending billions to Ukraine, spending billions on infrastructure projects that are phony, and now having a universal basic income scheme that is going to potentially double the national debt. Of course, there's a reckoning coming here. There's a reckoning coming for these out of control, unthinking politicians who think all you have to do is keep printing money and that's the answer. But we are headed for catastrophe. And if this is seriously considered and then implemented, it's going to harken that catastrophe that much faster.
Yeah, I think 2024 is going to be a pivotal year. And with the 49% or so of the world's population dealing with elections this year, we're going to see some major changes in 2024. So we're just at the beginning. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I sure hope that Justin Trudeau is enjoying his $10,000 a day sunny vacations. By the way, I'll get you out of here on this, David, which was I saw a report that his wife, his separated or ex-wife or wife or whatever, was with him on these trips. And I saw some reporting on this, was maybe curious. They talked about being separated because of some business relationship that she didn't want to be hauled in front of some sort of an ethics review. I don't know, but was she there on vacation with him in this Jamaica resort?
He was there. The children were there. The Trudeaus are supposed to be legally separated, and we all thought the divorce was imminent. But now they're vacationing together, and they're also going to Australia later this month. Another nice, warm place to go. And I don't know where he's
Right.
staying there, but believe me, I want to find out where he's staying there because once again, he is up to no good on. And every time he leaves the country, he's a massive embarrassment, especially if he goes to India. And of course, the other funny thing is his plane broke down again in Jamaica, just like it did in India when he was at the G20. And this aircraft is only 4 years old. So it's a Challenger, a Canadian Armed Forces Challenger jet, which he flies around the world with, increasing his carbon footprint every time he does. But it broke down. And of course, that just confounded the misery index for this whole trip. Not just for his family, but for Canadians who are saying, what is this guy up to? It's happening every time he goes away. So
It is embarrassing. It's the plane's falling apart while his country's falling apart back home. David, great to see you. Great to see you here in 2024. Welcome to the new year. Handsome sweatshirt, as always. Really appreciate you joining us. Thanks so much, David.
thank you so much, Clayton.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.